Just thought I'd give you a bit of quiet sound so that you can hear there's some low level noise I'm picking up on. My microphone sounds really different today. I don't know why. I don't know. Nothing should have changed, but it just feels a bit odd. And I can hear a bird chirping in the background, although can't now, of course. That's the bird I can hear. I don't know if you can hear that as well. Between the low level hum of my sister speaking with her work colleagues downstairs and then the chirping driving me mad. But good luck. Hello and welcome to A Wealthy Life. Today I have with me Michelle Seidling. No, I don't. I know I've got it written there. Hello and welcome to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Wishay, and today I have with me Michelle Seidling, all the way from USA, another one of 4 special guests that we have in this little mini series of guests. Michelle, welcome, and then I'm going to just do your intro for you, but welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vicky. Such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Well, look, let me just big Michelle up. So we met through podcasting. She very kindly had me on one of her podcasts. And, you know, sometimes you just have a conversation with someone and you connect. There's, again, this alignment of values or interests. So Michelle is all about holistic health, which I think is something that we're really missing out on. This idea that you can't just treat one bit, that we're these interconnected beings, and it's everything from our bodies to our minds to our spirits to our environments and everything. And her background, she's actually Dr. Michelle Seidling. She's a PhD in psychology. Very envious. I always wanted to be Dr. Vicky. And also, if that's not enough, not only is she a PhD, she's also a former veteran. So she works a lot with people coming out of the military, transitioning into, dare we call it, normal life. And that's what I thought was really interesting about this. There are 2 things. One side is the idea of stress and time and health, and the other side is transition. And if you've listened to the couple of podcasts that have come before this, you'll understand that we've been talking about first awareness and then coming to purpose. And now this idea here is transitioning and how to manage stress. And we spoke about it just earlier, managing stress to your advantage. So Michelle, maybe you could give us an example of what you mean by managing stress to your advantage.
Sure, absolutely. Well, if we think about stress to begin with, biologically, whatever it is, whether it's you're going to be having a wedding, you're going to, you've got some other life event, a graduation, you're building a house, you're, doing something, you're caring for an elderly family member, you've got some other thing in your life that triggers biologically your hypothalamus in your brain triggers hormones. It says, hey, we got a really get our rear end gear here. Come on, let's go. It triggers adrenaline. It triggers cortisol to say, okay, we got to tackle this, whatever it is. But, and then you have those reactions. You have that, you're more energized, you're alert, you're able to tackle whatever it is and handle it in that. And that's good because sometimes you need it, whether you're, for regardless of the purpose. But the thing is that when you're up like that all the time, when you're constantly under pressure, you put too much on your plate, you've got too much to do, you've got all of these things coming at you, that heightened hormone effect can biologically and many other health aspects can be a disadvantage to you. It can lead to different ailments. You're more at risk of heart attacks, for example, of high blood pressure, diabetes, whole range of different things. So controlling stress and using it to your advantage is key to doing that. Now, what can we do with regard to stress? I mean, some events are, hey, you just had a graduation, you just got married, maybe you're going through a divorce, you've got these situations, but taking them in stride. And I say that from experience, based on, for example, my elderly parents live with us. We have a little girl that we're watching, that we're taking care of, who has a lot of different health challenges, a lot of different needs. And that's, it takes a toll on you, but really focusing on you time, the me in all of the wellness is key to doing that, taking time out for yourself. In terms of stress, we're talking about, okay, whatever you have to do, cut out the distractions. Meaning that, okay, instead of just kind of binging on Netflix, for example, instead of doing what you need to do with regard to work or family things of that nature. I love the quote from Robert Brault, and he said, "We're kept from our goals not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal." Meaning we tend to gravitate toward the easy stuff.
Yeah.
The sand versus the rocks. If you think about that analogy, and I think they use that in finance a lot as well, Vicki, where you have a jar, and if you try to put the sand in first, and then you have a hard time stuffing the rocks in there, you can't do it. Versus if you put the rocks in, meaning you get those big goals done during your day first, then you'll have time for those smaller things, and really managing that. I love Brian Tracy's work as well, when he talks about eating the frog and really getting to the heart of what you're doing. And no matter what you're doing for work or for family events, but really prioritizing, really cutting out distractions, and making time for you from a wellness perspective. That's key. Whether it's just taking a break, go take a walk in nature, go call a friend, go have coffee with a friend, but really spending time that helps you to decrease that stress, that helps your body to relax and say, okay, whew, I'm not on the edge of my seat all the time.
I totally agree with you. Oh, sorry. I totally agree with you. It's absolutely crucial, that bit about taking time. I know that when you first started speaking about all that energy, when this podcast goes out, I will have been married for about 5 days at that point. I can imagine that my stress will have heightened, but I also know that when I'm recording this with you at this moment, that I've already planned in my diary that we are going to be taking time out to recuperate at the other side of it. So it's that planning, that focus on time. And in the word time, T-I-M-E, is me. And you need to put me in your time. This is more than just time management. It's about priorities. It's about purpose. It's still about getting, as you say, I like, rather than eat a frog, I'd rather put big rocks in a jar and fill it with sand around the outside. And I like that analogy better than I do eating a frog. And I think that's it. If you can just work out what the big rocks are, the big goals that you've got, then we can fit everything else in around there. I just think that's really fascinating. And one of your 2 podcasts, because you've got 2 podcasts, so one is called the Military Transition Wellness, which is where you're focusing on helping people move out of the military, obviously, as the title of the podcast says. The other one is about food experienced, and that's the one that we came on. How important is Oh, and this is really sort of a silly question, but it's just to give you an opportunity to explain more about what you know. But how important is food in this whole dynamic of managing our stress?
So food is huge in terms of managing your stress. A lot of times on a negative note, we tend to binge. Like when we're stressed, we tend to just grab whatever junk food we got. I said, oh, I just need a break. I'm just going to go binge on Netflix, just sit here and eat junk food. But that's doing your body a disservice because the stress isn't going to go away. You need to manage that and you need to take control. And that's giving your body the fuel that it needs. Food is fuel for the body. Just like in your car, you need gasoline, you need to change the oil once in a while, things like that. You need food. And that includes brain foods to get your concentration going, to get your thought processes going, to make financial decisions, to make life-changing decisions, to make work decisions, the whole gamut. You need proteins, you need whole foods. Think of it that way in terms of eating whole foods, eating lean meats, eating fruits and vegetables, to really focus on that, whole grains, giving your body the premium fuel. You know, at the gas station, you've got regular, you've got premium, maybe even have diesel if you need it, but you want to give your body the premium fuel that it needs. And that includes hydration as well. Too many people ignore the importance of hydration in terms of your thought processes, in terms of your energy, in terms of your stamina. That includes not just water, but electrolytes as well. So there are a host of different electrolyte drinks out there, things that contain magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium, phosphorus. Those are the essential electrolytes to keep your body functioning and staying in balance. But making time for those things throughout the day, that means taking breaks. That means packing a healthy snack and having a water bottle with you wherever you go, whether you're going to the office, you're doing errands, even when you're there at home. You need to be able to have those things, make it easy for yourself, have those things available, and just making time to have those things available makes a world of difference in terms of your level of concentration, in terms of your thought processes, in terms of your ability to do whatever it is you're doing.
I honestly, sometimes I think you're just speaking to me, and if you just put Vicky in the front of every sentence, it couldn't be more pertinent. But I know that when I am stressed, I wouldn't say that I necessarily binge, but I am someone that will go for higher carbs for some reason. So I'll crave, I don't know, jacket potato, or I'll crave pasta, which aren't things that I would normally eat. But when I'm stressed, that's what I'm looking for. Whereas I know that actually protein and fresh food is good for me. If I'm like stressed or tired or working too hard and not putting in the time for me, then that is exactly the opposite of what I go for, even though it could take just the same amount of time. And hydration, yes, I've always got my bottle of water, and sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I'm less good. And I'm really aware of how tired I get in the afternoon. So I know I've been well hydrated today, and I haven't had that mid-afternoon dip. When I don't drink water, I know that I have a mid-afternoon dip, and I really flag. And I suppose that's when the hydration is hitting you. But all of this is about, I don't know, you could say it's time management. Okay, so I'll take out my diary and I'm going to put in slots, right? Okay, every hour, or I'm going to set my watch so every hour. It's not about time management, though. It's more about a shift, and really this is bringing probably the psychology side of you in, a shift of what's important to you and prioritizing these things, because you can still be working on those big rocks that you want to work on. You can still be building a house and planning a wedding and running a business and doing a podcast and buying houses, which is all the things that I'm doing at the moment, but also still prioritize your health and schedule to go down the gym and plan to take your bottle of water downstairs and refill it every day and use it every day. But what can you say to the listeners to get them to, on top of everything else, because we're talking about a wealthy life, which is great. That's where you get to use your time the way you want. But if it's not a healthy life, then it's going to be harder to have a wealthy life. It needs to be a healthy, wealthy life.
Absolutely. And there's the expression health is wealth as well, because you may have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, if you're sick all the time, if you're too tired to do X, Y, and Z, then it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account or your stocks or anything like that. You've got to make time for you so that you can have the energy to invest, to build a house, to have a wedding, to have a graduation, to take care of an elderly family member, to take care of your kids. You've got to, I mean, especially kids have a boatload of energy. And if you're too tired to do all that, then they're at a disadvantage because nobody's taking care of them. And the same goes for, your elderly family member or some other a friend or something of that nature. But really taking care of your health, making time for you, keeps the vehicle running. And really understanding that connection, the me in the time, the me in the health and the wealth is really key. So just really saying, when you first wake up in the morning, making time to think, okay, here's what I want to focus on today. Here's how I'm in the picture. Maybe I need to set my alarm, like you mentioned, every hour. I just take a break. I get up and move, whether it's taking a walk out in nature, whether it's just standing up and doing some stretching, whether it's going to a yoga class, but really just making time, calling a friend, just talking with a friend to be able to release some negative stress, some tension or what have you, but also really helping to re-energize you and recalibrate you to then go back in and do, whatever that big rock is or whatever that frog is.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? It's this idea of priorities, of values, of recognizing, I suppose in a society, we've been taught to pursue money. So you go to school, you have to get a good education. I was talking with someone earlier today, and she works with young children. She's an author, and she goes into schools and she reads to schools. And she said what she's really noticed is that maybe, 10, 15 years ago, the 14, 15-year-olds were aware of the consequences of their actions. They were aware that if they didn't do well at their exams, then they wouldn't get to go to university. She's now seeing it in 7-year-olds. And if we've already got youngsters like 7-year-olds worried about their grades because they're tested, and that if they don't get their grades, then they're not going to get to go to the secondary school. If they don't go to the secondary school, then they're not going to get their grades, and then they're not going to go to the college or the university they want, and then they won't get the job, and then they won't earn the money. And they're worrying about that when they're 7. Talk about building stress in, it's already there. And so we need to be aware of sort of stress in our lives, but also how we can break this pattern of you have to go to school, you have to get a good job because you have to earn money. We do need that, but there must be a way and I haven't quite got the answer yet, other than the theory of it, is that if we put time first and go, this is what's important to me. I want to live a healthy and wealthy life. So I want both. I want the good stuff with my time, and I want the good stuff with my money, and I want to find a way to bring that all together and create, I don't know, a life for yourself that has you and your health as a priority. And I think particularly to women, I know that my assumption when I saw you doing the military transition is that that would be for probably more males than females. But have you got in your experience, I don't know, maybe some tips, particularly for women, where a woman will naturally be putting herself second because she'll put her children first? That's not to say that dads don't care for their kids, but they'll, and I spoke about this in some of my early podcasts, typically the male is the financial provider and the female is typically the nurturer, and that when you're in the nurturing role, you will be putting everybody in front of yourself. How are we able to claw that back and get it? It's about balance, isn't it? About balance, so that you can do everything, you can have everything, and you can be everything, as long as you've got time in there for you.
Absolutely. And I get that all the time in terms of women, whether they're transitioning from military service, whether they are an executive, they have a lot going on. They've got that, and they've got, whether they're raising a family, whether you've got different responsibilities, but we still tend to, in our nature as women, we're nurturers, and that's great. That's fantastic. But you also need to nurture you. And many times in my conversation with clients, we just have to take a step back and really understand that root cause situation, that hey, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I love the quote from organizational psychologist Benjamin Hardy, when he said, when you understand back here. I love the quote from organizational psychologist Benjamin Hardy, who says, when you understand the why, you figure out the how. So many times we think, especially as women, okay, oh my goodness, you almost dread getting out of bed in the morning. You're like, oh man, I've got this to do and that. I got to drive the kids here. Then I got that meeting at work and all of this stuff. And like, oh, I can't face it. But really putting you in the picture is key, because a lot of times we just are out of the gate, like a horse race, just trying to get things done, and then pretty soon we find ourselves lethargic. You don't have any energy. I cancel this, I can't do it, or what have you. But really making time for yourself, making time, you're the driver, you're the nurturer, and you've got to fuel yourself. That means making time. That means getting the rest that you need to begin with. That means getting the food that you need, the hydration. That means move, get some exercise, whether it's cardio, whether it's just simply doing some yoga, taking a break every so often during the day. Even for just a few minutes makes a big, big difference. And that helps you to kind of keep things in perspective as well, because all of this wellness helps to fuel your mindset. It helps to fuel your drive. It helps to fuel your energy. And a big part of wellness is also finding your passions and building your talents, building the skills that will help you be a better nurturer and a better giver. You mentioned a lot of times we're putting pressure on our kids to perform well, even at a young age. But in terms of if we can kind of turn that around so it's not some negative thing, hey, if you don't get the grades, you're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but encouraging them and ourselves to build our talents, to discover our talents, discover our passions. Because if you're in this demanding job and you dread going to work every day, that's going to show not only on yourself, but how you treat others, what your relationships are like, and even the impression that you're giving on your kids as well. And they're going to say, I don't want that in my life. I don't want to do that. But if you instead really take things in perspective and find something that you love. If you dread your job, well, then it's time to really rethink. Okay, what do I dread about it? What really makes me happy? What makes me excited to be a giver? And that helps you overall in your mindset, in physically, mentally, emotionally, with your social relationships, a whole host of different wellness areas, and you are actually going to be a better giver because of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So some of the language that you are using, and I know you can't have heard the recordings because you haven't heard the podcast, but we're all talking from the same hymn sheet. It's all about that awareness right at the beginning, understanding why this is important to you. And I was saying that I've actually recorded a podcast about why. So I think that there are three really important questions. The first one is why? Because if you don't understand why health is important, then you're not going to listen to what I mean by health and important. So it's got to be something that starts right at the beginning to hook you. And why do you want life? Why do you want change? Why do you want this? Why do you want that? Once you understand why, then you can get into the what. And once you've got into the what, which is the detail, you can then work out how you can have the what because of the why. So you can work your way back up the list. And I just thought that was really fascinating. And the other thing is, so much for women constantly driving themselves forward. And I know this from my situation. I was divorced and my children were just 1 and 3 at the time. And I knew instinctively that if I didn't take care of me, there was no one to take care of the children. So sometimes whether you're in a relationship and whether you're the one looking after the children or the one bringing in the money, if you then add in that thought of, if you don't take care of you, then there will be no one to do this role. So there's no point pursuing this role to the point of exhaustion, whether you're out there working as a male or a female in a senior position, and it's making you miserable and it's making you exhausted, it's making you stressed, and all the triggers that Michelle would say you can get from that, the health complications that you can get from that, or whether you're the one at home looking after the children and they're boisterous and they're exhausting and they've got this club and that club and you have to go here and you have to go there and you've got to run the house and you've got to get the food and everything else, and maybe still hold down a job as well, which many women do and many nurturers do. If you don't, either of you, put yourselves first, then there will be nobody providing the finances and there will be nobody managing and nurturing the children and the home, because you'll be too exhausted to do it. At some point you will get that collapse. So really be clear on why it's important for you to put yourself first and how ultimately that is going to lead you to the goal that you wanted. And then what Michelle has talked about in the middle is the what, the ways that you can do it, the taking the breaks, the eating good food. Michelle, it's just been incredible speaking to you. I think you're an absolute master of knowledge, and also this idea of, as we started right back at the beginning, that actually you can use your stress to your advantage, that it doesn't have to be something that winds you down, that it's the, if you like, it can be the fuel that drives you to get to your goals. You also very kindly were saying that you've got a 5-day course on health goals that you would actually share with everybody. Could you maybe share that with us, please? And of course, I'll put all of the other links in the notes, but if you can just tell us about that, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I offer a free 5-day email course where we really get clarity on your health goals and on you and all of your busyness and really kind of drilling down to that why and then figuring out the how. So it's chock full of information and resources. Please, please sign up for it. And that's one of the best 5 days of your life can be getting this information and really getting a jump start on you and on your health.
Oh, I think that's a definite for me. You will watch. I will be signing up very shortly. How do I get to this? Is it on your website?
Yes, if you go to foodexperienceunplugged.com, you've got a link to the 5-day email course. You also have you can access both podcasts, Food Experience Unplugged and Military Transition Wellness, as well as a whole host of different resources, and to really help you and really hone in on building you as you are building your life.
I thank you so much for your time, Michelle. It's such an important part of all that I'm hoping to enable the listeners to create. This idea of a wealthy life, about putting your time first, is so important, but none of it's going to be possible if you haven't got your health along the other side of it. So that's really why I wanted to have this conversation, and the fact that it's not just about food, it's about stress, it's this holistic approach. It's everything that's so important. It's getting the right food, it's getting the right rest, the right hydration, the right nutrition, and in some ways, right's a little harsh, but the right priorities, and making sure that you are one of those priorities so that you can keep going and achieve all that is destined for you and all that you are capable of and want to achieve. So Michelle, thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you, Vicki. It's been a pleasure being on your podcast, and I really hope that the listeners take this and really run with it to build a wealthy life.
Thank you. I'm sure they will. So listen, everybody, it's been another episode, one of these brief ones that we're just slipping in the middle here in the summer. And I've had some wonderful guests. I've still got another couple of guests for you. So I hope that you have found that this podcast will give you a little bit more whoosh in your life. And I will see you next week and speak to you next week. Thank you.